Are you ready to turn your dreams into a reality? Then you need to join the next round in the Dream Bigger Mastermind. Get on the waitlist today to secure early access and an exclusive bonus when enrollment opens. It's time to manifest your best life yet.
Hello, friend. Welcome back. Thank you so much for being here for another episode of Breathe More. I'm Anna Lilia. For today's topic, I wanted to talk about avoidance. This is something that just came up yesterday, actually, earlier this week, where I was talking to a client and she has been in my Dream Bigger Mastermind. We were doing a private session with her to help her, really just get to the core of what is going on, because what I've been seeing throughout is that her avoidance continues to get in the way. And so I wanted to talk about this topic because I think it's something that we all struggle with, right? It's like how a lot of times it manifests in our life and we're not even aware that that's actually what is happening. So avoidance can look like actually being really busy, but keeping busy doing things that's just busy work. That's not actually getting you in the direction or accomplishing the goals that you want to accomplish, right? We're doing things that are mindless or still have to get done, but we keep avoiding the bigger thing. It can also look as procrastination. Like that's pretty obvious, right? Where literally we're just continuing to put off what it is that we know we have to do. And what's really interesting about all of this is that we're avoiding because maybe something is stressing us out, or like to actually do it, we're afraid of doing it. We're avoiding because we don't want to have a confrontation, or maybe there is a difficult conversation that needs to be had, but we don't want to. So we're like putting it off, putting it off. We keep telling ourselves right now isn't the right time to avoid whatever worst case scenario our brain is telling us might happen. But what happens is that this whole time that we're procrastinating, avoiding, keeping busy with other stuff, we're still creating a lot of stress in our space, in our body. And it doesn't solve the problem. And we're just prolonging that anxiety, those feelings of uncertainty. Avoidance is a coping mechanism. So, what I see so many times as well with my clients is that when they catch themselves avoiding, or I call them out like, hey, you haven't been showing up on social media, what's going on? Or you've been missing some of our live classes, like what's happening? And oftentimes there's a lot of shame that comes through as well. And so from that, what sometimes happens is that they might fall into a little mini depression, or they just want to hide. Or like one of my clients, what she was saying is like, I don't want to trauma dump. Like there's a lot of stuff going on, but I just don't feel like sharing it with the group, or I don't want to burden. We're putting again, everyone else, thinking about how everyone else is going to feel or think before we just do what might make us feel good. And so, my invitation with today's episode is to have us reflect on, is there any area in your life that you're avoiding, where the procrastination is coming up, where you are not having that conversation, not sharing how you're feeling, where you're not enforcing your boundaries, or maybe you don't have boundaries around this topic yet, where you're keeping really busy. Maybe you are someone who works insane hours at your job. You go above and beyond to show what an amazing employee you are. And I feel like so much of this is unconscious. Like you may be thinking like, I don't care if I'm a good employee or not. But then I ask you to reflect, like, how available do you make yourself for your job? Are you always on call? Do you feel fear or nerves if you don't answer an email right away? Is there worry about losing your job? Like, what are some thoughts around that? And so I see people, I've had clients and I have family members, their whole life is their work, like their employees, they work for someone. And yet, when it comes to themselves and having time for their joy, for living, for their own personal goals, all of that is sacrificed. And so, again, I ask, why? Why are you hiding behind your job? Why is it so easy for you to say yes to your boss or your manager and so difficult to say yes to you? At your job, you're doing things that maybe are new, you're learning, you're stretching yourself. And so, why aren't you applying that same dedication, that same drive, even a few more hours more? Because I know probably you can't spend the same amount of time, 40 hours plus, for your personal. But then again, like, why not? Right. So, taking a moment to think about, is there something in my life that I'm putting off, that I'm avoiding? And now let's ask ourselves, why? What am I afraid is going to happen? What is this catastrophic thought, this worst case scenario, these stories that my mind is telling me? And so once you have clarity on that, is this true? Is there any evidence that the worst case scenario will happen? It might be a yes. And for some of you, it might be no, actually, this person has always been really kind and understanding. And actually, I'm realizing that it's more like my own shame or guilt for being in a position where I'm asking for help or needing support. So once we're able to get in clarity on why the avoidance is coming up, then we're able to start to make a decision or choices or actions from a different place. What felt really scary and overwhelming perhaps becomes less. That's the other thing. If you're working towards something big, that jump from where you are today to where you want to be can feel like it's too much. Your brain can't even like process it, can't understand how you're going to get there. So, what I recommend that you do is you break it down into smaller steps. And I want you to get that idea or whatever it is that you're working on out of your head and onto paper. Write it down, pen to paper, and then write down what each step is involved to reach your goal. Then, when you start to take those steps, your brain is also able to interpret it as like, okay, that wasn't that hard. It actually didn't take me as long as I thought it was going to take me. I actually had fun doing it. And then that's where we start to create the momentum. So, we've identified how these stories that our mind is telling us, the narrative that we have around why we're avoiding something may not be as bad as we think, or even if it might be, is it just something that needs to be experienced so that you can move on, so that you can close that cycle, that circumstance, that loop that's stuck in your mind? Where it's just like draining your energy and you're not even aware of why you're like so tired. It's because there's this constant like thinking of like, oh my gosh, I have to do that. I still haven't done it. It's still on my to-do list. Or what if this happens? What if I don't? So much mind drama. It's just draining your battery. And so now you have an action step on what to take. And I'm going to invite you to set a deadline, especially if you've been putting it off for a long time. Put it in your calendar. This is where accountability comes into play, especially if this is a coping mechanism that you are recognizing that it's a part of many areas of your life, the avoidance. Then having a coach, a mentor, someone to ask you, like, hey, where are you at with this? I do this with my clients all the time, with my Dream Bigger Mastermind clients. It's like, all right, you said you were going to do this. It's Monday. Have you done it? Oh my gosh, no. And like people have said to me that they like put it off, put it off, put it off right up until they know that we have one of our live coaching classes because they don't want to. hear it from me, if you will. And so then they end up doing it. I'm like, okay, well, if this is what's going to help you to start to take action, we'll take it. But what's going to happen when I'm not around? And so I'm all about empowering people and not just to continue waiting for me to help them take the action or stay accountable. Like I'm not in your, every single day of your life. I can't read your mind. I can only meet you where you're at. And so with that, you can avoid me if you want to change results, right? If you decide to work with me and then you start to miss sessions, well, then that's going to have a different result by the end. And so this client that I was talking about, I'm like, okay, she's going to join. She's currently right now in Mastermind and she's going to continue on for this next cohort. And she said, she's like, I really need accountability. And that's when I said to her, I'm like, right, I'm here. I'm able to give you that accountability, but I also need you to show up. I need you to message me in Slack, like I'm really struggling with this, or my mind is going into that loop of drama, whatever it is. Because again, I'm a clairvoyant, but I don't read minds when you're not in front of me. I don't read minds when you're in front of me either. I read your energy. So that was a reminder with a lot of love and compassion. It's like, we got to get to the core of like what's really going on around this. As we just said, right? Like why do you keep putting off the one thing that you're saying is your priority, is your top goal? And so then I started to list off some possibilities. Like, is it because you're already so tired and the thought of moving forward in that direction means it's temporarily going to be more work? Is it because you are afraid of like potentially moving to a new place and then there's so much uncertainty, so many unknowns? Like the hope is that you're going to have a new reality, but what if it's exactly the same? And you went through all of this uprooting to just experience the same. So addressing the fear, the concerns is really important, and regulating the nervous system so that again, there's more safety, there's more trust in self, there's more courage for you to step out and do that next thing. I have another client who was working with me in Dream Bigger Mastermind, and she has a business partner. And a lot of the tension was in the miscommunication, how they would treat each other, just all the stress and overwhelm. It was coming out with each other. And so they had developed this dynamic that would always unfold where it was a bit explosive and hurt feelings. And then they would go back to as if nothing happened. So while we were working together, I was coaching her to show up differently, for her to take ownership and responsibility for her activations, to use her tools to regulate herself and process those strong emotions that had been activated, and then show up with her business partner and communicate in a way where it wasn't accusatory, where she wasn't being defensive, but just calmly either asking questions if there were some questions to be asked, or stating, this is how it made me feel to experience this, and then making a request. So she did that. And by the end of Dream Bigger Mastermind, that tension, that stress that was ongoing because this is someone she has a business with had disappeared. Their relationship had shifted. She felt empowered. Her business partner was also showing up differently. And all of that was because my client did the work, and she changed her energy and she used her tools and she stopped avoiding and started to show up and communicate how she was feeling, what she was needing, and also taking things less personally. It didn't have to wait on her business partner to also do the work. So for those of you who are in relationships, this also applies. I know so much of the time we're able to clearly see the faults of our partner, what they should change and heal. And we get so frustrated and we like want them to do the therapy with us. We want them to work with a coach as well, or whatever it may be. But you can get results, new results. You can change the dynamic by you doing it yourself and then showing up differently. So that's a way to start to change things without having to wait on someone else to show up differently. The other thing that I want to remind you of is throughout this whole process to be gentle and compassionate with yourself, understanding that the avoidance is a coping mechanism. It is our brain interpreting the current situation as something dangerous. And so we're not going to go there in order for your mind, your nervous system to keep you alive. So that's when we have to become aware and recognize this is not going to kill me. It might feel uncomfortable. It might feel hard. There might be a learning curve, but I'm also acknowledging that this is deeply something that I want to do, that I want to experience, or that I no longer want to deal with, right? Just like ending it once and for all, as opposed to continuing to linger the frustration, the tension, the fight, or whatever it may be. So if you catch yourself in the awareness going into shame, connect with your inner child, give yourself some love, maybe do some writing on like, hey, I'm feeling this way because X, Y, and Z. And I'm feeling that I should be the one that solves all my problems alone. And here I am being in a place where I have to be vulnerable and ask for help. And instead, I'm just pulling away. And not only is that hurting you, but it also hurts our relationships because I do believe that at the core, people that we have attracted into our life want to help us, want to show their love. The same way that you would be there for someone in a time of need, someone else in your life wants to do that for you. So don't reject the love. Don't reject the support. It doesn't make the other person feel good, and also it doesn't make you feel good. And sometimes what I've seen it, how I see it unfold is that that manifestation that they've been working towards comes to them and they reject it. They avoid it because it doesn't come to them in the way that they had hoped or imagined that it would. So let's take a deep breath and exhale, and reminding yourself that you're doing the best that you can, and maybe making a promise to yourself like, I'm just going to take one step at a time. I'm going to have new evidence for my mind so that it's not going into that protective mechanism of avoiding, of the self-sabotage. And I'm going to be courageous because I've already have done a lot of difficult things, a lot of new things in my life. And I'm going to show up for myself in my life. So I invite you to take control of your life again. Let's deal with it. Let's show up. Let's not be in victim mode. Let's take ownership. Let's change our reality. Let's ask for the support we need, the help, and end the anxiety and that loop of wanting, but then not getting it. We're avoiding to try not to feel pain or any other discomfort. You got this. You're courageous. Use your breath as a tool to help you, again, connect with your courage, connect with your inner strength, to give yourself some love and compassion. And if this topic resonated with you, I invite you to look into joining my Dream Bigger Mastermind. We are starting in September, and this is a space where I'm going to help you do this work. I'm going to help you uncover what is the root cause of this avoidance, and not just that, but help you heal it so that it's no longer a pattern for you, a habit, and you're able to show up consistently and empowered in your life so that you can manifest your dream life, your authentic life, whatever brings you joy, whatever you're currently working towards. So you can get on the wait list. You can click on the show notes. And then I'm also hosting a free manifestation workshop on Thursday, September 5th. This is called Step Into Your Dreams. We're going to do some manifestation rituals, and I'm going to talk to you more about my upcoming Dream Bigger Mastermind and how it can help you be the roadmap so you can use my blueprint to manifest your desires. Thank you so much for listening today. Please reach out if this topic resonated. I always love to hear from you. Send me a DM, send me an email. Let me know if you struggle with avoidance or if you know someone who struggles with it. Please share this episode with them. Sending you so much love, and let's keep breathing.